When we're talking about anti-inflammatory diets, again, it's one of the more balanced approaches to diet. Bringing in seafood, it's not a vegan diet, it's not a Mediterranean diet. There's some things that you want to bring in. You're thinking about getting muscle into your diet, into your body, so that kind of acts as a brace around the joints. So but there are certain foods that have been shown to be anti-inflammatory, and very potently so. And one of those is, if at all possible, to get into your diet as much as you can, is ginger. There's lots of components in ginger, but one that's very interesting is one called gingerol. And that's been shown through quite extensive studies to be very, very anti-inflammatory and very, very beneficial to anybody with any inflammatory conditions. With this dish, so I'm going to use a lot of ginger in this dish for myself, but you can bring back the amount of ginger. I'm going to actually, for myself, because I'm making it for myself, use about 80 grams. But you could bring that right back to about 40 if you find it's just too much ginger. But so again, don't be afraid to play around with things, because you don't want to be putting people off food either by saying, food shouldn't be an effort. And build up your tolerances, build up what you actually like to eat with things. It's like eating chili. When we all start eating chili, it starts off very, very small amounts of chili, but then before you know it, we're all eating lots of it. I'm going to pair that with some carrots, because carrot, ginger and coriander they're like tomato and basil. They're a great combination together. And I'm going to add a few beans into this little dish, just to bring up a bit of protein into it, and just give it a little bit more meat, for want of a better description. I'm going to use celery, which is again one of those great vegetables and a lot of benefits in your diet. And I'm going to top this up with a kind of a sweet potato, which you could use mandolin, which is a little tool for cutting very thin. It would be probably better. But I'm going to just soften these in a little piece of lightly salted water, cool them down before I put the dish together. But I'm going to use plenty of sweet potato in this. I've peeled them. Normally I wouldn't peel my sweet potatoes, but because I'm using them as a topping, it'll just look a bit better. It'll present a little bit more nicer. But again, a lovely fibre-packed, nutrient-dense dish, this, with lots of very, very good anti-inflammatory components, in particular getting into that ginger and so on, and sweetness. So this should be a lovely little dish. Now the first thing I'm going to do with this dish is I'm going to soften up my sweet potatoes just a little bit. I'm not going to really cook them, just get a little bit of so I can work with them. So I've just boiled a pot of very, very lightly salted water, and I'm just going to pop my sweet potatoes in there and let them cook there for just about 30 seconds to a minute, just really to allow them to soften up just a little bit. And that way they're going to be just much easier, but you don't want them mushy, just to literally soften them a bit. Now with these potatoes, sweet potatoes I should say, as you can see, they're still quite brittle, but I've just, it actually took me about 4 minutes there, just to kind of bring them up to a gentle simmer. But again, you don't want them to cook through under any circumstances. You just want them quite soft. And now I'm just going to drain these off in a colander, and I'm going to cool them down before I go on to the next step. So into a colander, drain them off, cool them down under some cold running water, and then dry them off well. So that's what we're looking for. Just a nice piece of pliability in the potato, so we can just kind of turn around, and you'll see why that is the case a little. Okay, and then we're just going to put those aside until we need them. So for the next step then, I'm just going to add about a generous teaspoonful of coconut oil, maybe just a little teaspoonful and a half, into my pan. And I'm going to add all my celery, a little pinch of salt, and I'm going to allow that cook away just to get a little bit of colour and just to develop a little bit of flavour onto the celery. Let that cook away. Just keep in line, and I'd say it'll take about 5 minutes. So having allowed my celery cook for about 5 minutes, you can just see it's just developing a little bit of flavour there. I didn't put a lid on this. And now I'm going to add my ginger. As I said, I'm going to use a lot of ginger here, close on 80 grams. But you could use a lot less if you just thought that was overkill with the ginger. I cannot absolutely understand why, but it's just the benefit of that ginger line, and the benefit it brings to this type of diet. And plus, it's a beautiful flavour if you have a taste for it, as with any flavour, I suppose. So I'm just going to let that cook away for a couple of seconds. And now I'm going to add my carrots. And I'm going to just let those cook with the celery, just to develop a little bit of flavour. I'm going to add a little bit of water in there, just to kind of let them all speed along, and as well as that, I want good freshness in this ginger, in this with this dish. Going to pop a lid on it. Just let them now sweat away there for about 7-10 minutes. Just keeping an eye out as it cooks, just so the carrots get nice and softened down. Now, having let that sweat for a few more minutes, I'm going to add a little bit more water into this, because I don't want the pan dry, and I'm going to let that sweat down until the carrots are completely cooked through and become nice and soft, because I do intend to crush those up a little. Now, as you can see, that's just cooking away nicely. The carrots are starting to get a little bit mushy, which is what I want. And when they start to get to that point, I'm just going to let them cook a little bit more, because I do want the parts quite soft. But the sweet potatoes I blanched earlier, there they are there. I've just transferred them into a bowl, and what I've done is I've tossed them in a little bit of olive oil. Each kind of individually, I want them all kind of individually, just a little bit of olive oil drizzled onto them all, so they're kind of oiled sweet potatoes now. So I'm just going to let that cook on just for a few more minutes there, just until those carrots get nice and soft, and that way we can start to finish off the dish. So having waited just until my carrots are starting to soften up there, you can see yourself, all the carrots are going to be different. Sometimes if you're using organic, they'll probably take a little longer than other carrots. What I'm going to do now is just going to get my smasher, potato masher. I'm just going to crush all of the carrots up, and this celery to kind of make a nice kind of coarse mixture. I don't want a puree, I want texture here. So the old hand potato masher is the best solution for that. I'm also going to add about 40 ml of olive oil in there now towards the end of the cookery, because you don't want to be kind of doing heavy frying with that, but these are more kind of steaming temperatures, and we're not going to denature that olive oil, so you will get the benefits from it. So you have this nice gingery celery kind of champ kind of texture here. And now I'm going to add in my beans, because I do want to bring a little bit of protein into this dish and kind of make it more of a complete meal. So I'm just going to cook them around. And then just adjust your seasoning a little bit. I think a little bit of black pepper. Maybe a pinch more salt if it's necessary. Do taste it. Use your own judgment on this. So we have this nice bean, celery, carrot mixture, which we're going to use to fill our little pie dish. So we'll just have a little taste of that, see where I'm going with it. For me, just needs a pinch more salt. And now I'm just going to put that aside. I'm going to let it cool down. I'm not going to put my coriander in quite yet, because with fresh herbs, you don't want to cook them as little as possible. And then we're going to just get this ready for the oven. So into my dish now, it's cooled down just a little bit. I'm just going to add my fresh coriander and just mix that in. Again, this is when you can just adjust your seasoning a little bit more if it's necessary. Should be a nice little bit of flavor in there. So you have that nice gingery kind of filling there with beans and everything else. A little taste. And now, in an oven suitable, preferably an earthenware dish, I'm just going to pop all of that mixture. Spread it around the bottom. And then I'm going to take my sweet potatoes. And I'm going to just kind of twist these guys up. You don't have to be too fancy. And kind of build a kind of a nice kind of a rose shape. Kind of stand them on top, balance them against each other. It'll take its shape itself. And just kind of build them up around there. Don't forget they're partially cooked as well, which is the big advantage here, and so is the other things. And then what we're going to do is kind of build that into a nice kind of a rose shape and just continue on building there and just kind of standing them on edge. You don't have to be too fancy. Some people get very fancy with this kind of thing. For me, life's too short. And I'm going to just keep building those up until I kind of have this nice kind of decorative topping. So I'm just going to build that up there like that. So having built that up into my average type of rose, life's too short to be getting that perfect. I'm going to just get a little bit more salt just on the sweet potatoes themselves, maybe a patch of pepper, and I'm going to pop that into an oven at 180 degrees for, I would say, about 15 minutes. I'll give you an exact time when it comes out of the oven, but just do keep an eye on it as it's cooking, because again, everybody's oven is a little bit different. And don't forget that potatoes are partially cooked, the base is cooked, so it's only getting a little color and letting the whole thing come together. So that's going into the oven now for a little while, and I'm going to take it out 180 degrees and we'll see how we get on. So after about 3/4 of an hour actually cooking at 180 degrees, there we are. Our nice sweet potato ginger carrot tart. And that's nice little wholemeal, everything you want really. Lovely.